Well, good morning, everyone. Ken Ham here again from Answers in Genesis, Creation Museum Mark Encounter. I'm in the science labs, actually, the science building here at Bob Jones University, and I have some real creation scientists with me and also some students here at Bob Jones University. Now, we can all, wave to the camera there. Now, we've got a pretty low signal here, so if this cuts out, I'm going to start again somewhere else with a better signal, but it seems to be working right now, so we'll just see how things go. This is one of the few universities in the world, actually, that all the science faculty can say that they are six-day young Earth creationists. And of course, you have the evolutionists today, the secularists saying you can't be a real scientist if you're a creationist. Well, that's not true here at all. And we have some of the students also who can talk to us. And over the back here, it looks like they put up a representation of me right there. That's a little concerning. Can you see that there? First of all, Dr. Gray, you're the head of the department here at Bob Jones University for the science department. So tell us a little about it.
Well, we've got an unusual combination, really, of intellectual rigor. We are very much a teaching institution that tries to help students to develop their maximum potential, and a lot of people in the evolutionary community think that people in the creation side of things don't think at all.
Exactly.
But in fact, it's our objective really that our students learn how to be proficient in what science can and cannot do, and in engaging with the evolutionary worldview. In fact, it's one of our objectives that our students know more about evolution here, having been here, than they would know if they were in a secular institution where it was uncritically accepted.
Exactly. In fact, that's the interesting thing. I have an article here by Dr. David Boyd. He's here somewhere, right?
David's right here.
There he is over there. Hey, David, could you come over here for a moment? At secular universities, students are protected from hearing about creation. The professors don't want them to hear anything, and they don't want them to even question evolution. And yet here, you're very happy to tell the students all about evolution.
That's right.
As well as creation.
Yeah.
But explain your philosophy there.
Yeah, so a good part of what we're trying to do here is to teach our students to be able to go out into the world and interact with anybody at almost any level. And because they're going to be scientists, they're going to be interacting with fellow scientists. And so if they're going to have what we like to call redemptive conversations with other scientists, they really need to know about evolution, because when they say that nothing makes sense except in light of evolution, they really believe that. And so with our students actually knowing what evolution means, all the ins and outs of that, they can really interact with them and then really go down to the worldview issue, because it's not about the facts. We got the facts.
We all have the same facts.
That's
yep.
right. Mm-hmm. And we can use those facts to actually support a creationary worldview. And that's really beautiful that our students can do that.
Now, what's your PhD in?
Yeah, I have a doctorate in entomology.
Entomology?
Studying insects.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
We have lots of insects in Australia.
Yeah.
In fact, we have an insectorium at the Creation Museum.
Right, it's beautiful.
And we have beautiful display there.
Mm-hmm.
Not as big as, say, all the insects you see in the London Natural History Museum or something, but I think it's one of the most exquisitely done displays I've ever seen at a museum anyway.
Yeah, I've been there, and I've spent a lot of time in there just really enjoying that.
And the high quality of those
it's
insects.
Very high quality,
so
yes.
as soon as you go to the Creation Museum, you just head for the insects, right?
No. But when we get there, we spend a lot of time there.
Oh, that is really great. It's sad to me that students in secular universities don't get to hear about really thinking critically concerning origins. And even in many of the Christian universities that compromise with evolution, they don't teach about what the sort of things that you teach here correctly either.
That's right.
And so it makes a big difference. Do any of the students that are here, I think we have Brittany, is that right? And Deanna and Christian, is that right? I got that. And Jesse, you're pre-med? You mean you could actually come to a creationist university and then become a doctor or a nurse or?
Yes, actually we've had many graduates do that. We've got graduates in medical schools and graduate schools all over the country studying in the medical profession. And I'm currently a senior. I'm graduating in May and hopefully planning on going to a medical school and becoming a doctor one day and serving other people, helping them medically. And actually, Dr. Chetta here is a medical doctor that teaches us.
So, that was absolutely fantastic. You know, our daughter did nursing here at Bob Jones University, and one of the things she noticed is that some of the nurses she was with, the younger ones that had come through the secular education system, didn't have the same care for patients. It was almost like, I guess, you know, if you taught we're just animals anyway, and people who are old, you know, they're just a drain on the health system. I'm sure it makes a big difference having a Christian worldview here at a place like this.
Yes, it does. Actually, I'm currently in a class called Biomedical Ethics taught by Dr. Miner, and we're going through a lot of end-of-life scenarios and beginning-of-life scenarios and just discussing why it would be ethical to do certain things and why it wouldn't be ethical to do other things that currently is commonly accepted in our culture.
Well, that's great. You know, you should talk to the marketing team at bju to help them market the university. You're pretty good at this. Well, we'll talk to some of the other students here in a moment, but we're talking about the pre-med program here, and you actually have something in that room. We won't go into the room, but you have something in that room that's pretty unique even for colleges like this. Is that correct?
Yeah, we actually have a cadaver lab, which is rare among universities, but among Christian universities. We're one of only 3 Christian universities in the country with a cadaver lab, and we use it for our pre-med training as well as our cell bio training.
Well, and that's back here. We'll see if Maria can get just a little look at the room back there. And so you guys really want to make sure that your students have the best quality education, don't you?
Well, not only that, anatomy and physiology is such a wonderful proof of creation because of the complexity. So one of the beauties of teaching anatomy and physiology here is you don't have to be politically correct. And we are often wowed because one of our big ideas here is that structure enables function.
Mm-hmm.
We believe that God created the structure for a particular function. And it's ironic that in evolutionary teaching they actually ascribe to evolution some design characteristics, because even in the textbooks they'll say somewhere along the line the organism realized it was going to need a better way to handle oxygen, and so it developed hemoglobin. So they actually ascribe to
a design feature to it.
Right.
Yeah.
So they have their God, and it's called nature.
Yeah.
But so we are able to expose that.
Well, I just can't help get excited for parents to understand that there are universities like this, and you know, Bob Jones is one of those few that really teaches Christian worldview and takes a stand on God's Word in Genesis, and they get an incredible education here, incredible academic education. We're going to open it up too for questions. If people want to put in the comments there, we'll see if we can get to some of those, and our videographer Maria is going to see if she can keep tabs on that. But where did you get your qualifications?
I have a bachelor's in zoology and a minor in chemistry, but my MD is from LSU Medical School in New Orleans.
LSU Medical School in New Orleans. Okay. We actually have on staff with us Dr. David Menton, who taught gross anatomy at Washington University School of Medicine.
Yeah, we've actually had Dr. Menton here to speak.
He's a great communicator.
Yeah, he is.
Knows his anatomy too. He's very good at that. And then we have someone beside you who's jealous of my accent.
Sure.
They call you Enzo.
Yes.
Now, your last name is?
Antignani.
So it's Dr. Antignani.
That's right.
Did I get that right?
Good enough.
Dr. Antignani.
Good enough.
Okay, good.
With a southern accent.
With a southern accent. So, so your PhD is in what?
Agrobiology and agrochemistry. I'm from Italy.
From Italy?
Yes.
I guessed that.
Okay.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're from Italy.
Yep.
Yeah. So you can talk Italian?
Un poco.
Oh, okay. Whatever that means. You just say hello to
A
me?
little bit. A little bit.
A little bit.
It's
Okay.
my main language. That's where I was raised.
So what do you do here?
I teach plant science and other classes like biodiversity, organismal biology, botany, and various labs.
And you actually are a creationist?
Yeah.
Six-day young Earth creationist?
Yeah.
And you have a PhD?
I do.
And your PhD is from?
Yeah, actually, all my degrees are from secular universities. I didn't have any association with BJU until I came to work here. So I started my bachelor degree in Italy, I finished my master there, and then I started my PhD there. And then during my PhD, I came abroad here in the States. I finished my studies at Virginia Tech, and then for a couple of years I was working at University of Michigan as a postdoc, and then God led me here.
That's absolutely phenomenal. You know, it's interesting. I get people putting comments on my Facebook when we talk to people like you saying, well, you're not a scientist, you can't be. You're a creationist, so you can't be a scientist. I mean, I hear that all the time.
I worked as a scientist for roughly 10 years, and then after then I started thinking about switching from a pure research to a teaching-research position. So my background is really rooted in science.
Well, you know, as David said before, you know, we all have the same data. And when they say, you know, you can't be a scientist and be a creationist, it's because they have this evolutionary worldview, and they think that, oh, if you don't have an evolutionary worldview, you can't be a scientist. But there's one of our staff, Dr. David Manton, says, you know, when he taught anatomy, and he taught at the Washington University School of Medicine, he said, evolution never came into anything. I mean, in the other classes, they talk about evolution, then they get on with real science, which was dealing with the here and now. But because you have a creationist worldview, actually, I would say people with a creationist worldview are better scientists because we have the right worldview with which to look at the world.
And we have right, and I agree. We have more of a critical approach. And one of the things we like to emphasize in our classes is really active discussion. In our classes, we discuss obviously historical science, real science, and then we also discuss about daily science, like I like to call it. For instance, discussion regarding GMOs in connection with the creation mandate. And we don't impose a specific view on those type of topics, but we really encourage our students to think through.
Right.
So that whatever their position ends up being on these kind of topics, it's an informed and critical position.
Excellent. And they can understand your accent?
I guess so. The school hasn't fired me yet.
Okay. We spoke to Dr. Boyd, right, before. And by the way, where'd you get your qualifications from?
Yeah, so I got my doctorate degree from Clemson University, just down the road from here.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And then I worked for the Department of Agriculture, USDA,
Yeah.
as a research scientist for 5.5 years before coming here.
Well, there's another one. See, how can he have been a research scientist when he's a creationist?
Yeah.
But actually, you're doing a fantastic job here teaching students how to think critically and
That's right.
and to have the correct worldview and how to understand the other worldview,
That's right.
which makes all the difference. So, Brittany, so what are you studying here?
I'm pre-med.
Oh, you're pre-med too?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. And so what do you think of Bob Jones University?
I think it's a great school. Coming here, I didn't know a lot about evolution or other worldviews, just grew up in a Christian home. So they taught us a lot about evolution and also how to defend it, not only biblically, but logically about creationism.
How to defend creation.
Right, exactly. So I know coming here, you know what you believe, but you leave here knowing why you believe.
And see, I think that's true of a lot of students. You know, in a lot of homes, they might believe the Bible, go to church, but they don't really know why they believe what they do. And you think the university really changed that, helped that?
Yes, sir, definitely, especially through class Evolution Origin. Dr. Boyd teaches that, so that was great. And then all the classes just integrate the biblical worldview and how to defend against evolution.
And see, it's so, to me, it's such a blessing to hear that because there's so few Christian schools that do that. And this is one of those that does. That's why we encourage parents to consider BJU. We actually put at the top, we pinned a comment at the top that has a link directly to bju.edu, so you can go there and find out about Bob Jones University. And over here we have Deanna. Is that right, Deanna? And so, what do you do? Brittany, I wanted to ask you, what do you want to do for the future?
I like to become a doctor. I got accepted to medical school, so I plan to go in July, Lord willing.
Going to medical school in July.
Yes,
Become a
sir.
doctor. We need more doctors like you. Excellent. So, Deanna, what about you?
I'm a cell biology major.
Cell biology major. What does that mean?
It's very similar to pre-med, but we have more electives and it can be applied to many different fields in biology.
So, what do you hope to do for the future?
I want to be a genetic counselor. Genetic counselor?
Oh, genetic counselor. Is that right? So, explain what genetic counseling is.
It has a lot to do with helping patients who are facing a genetic diagnosis,
Okay.
Either for themselves or for their unborn child, and going with them through different tests that they can do to find out more information about it, and also guiding them through this process. It's a difficult process. It's very emotional and very ethical as well.
Yeah, I can understand. Of course, in the world, you know, if they think that there's something could be wrong with the baby, they say, oh, you just aborted.
Exactly.
And so you help mothers through those sorts of situations, and, you know, from a Christian perspective, dealing with Christian morality and a Christian worldview.
Right.
So that'd be a very interesting area, and I'm sure very emotional too when you're dealing with people in real life situations.
Yes.
So what do you think of Bob Jones University coming here?
I love it here. I have learned so much. I had a Christian worldview through my home. I was homeschooled, and it was solid, but I learned more here, and it's been integrated into my entire life, even across English classes and math classes. Every teacher integrates that back into a Christian worldview, especially with the science classes. Critical thinking is huge, and you may not remember the facts of a certain, like a physiology test, but what you do leave when you graduate here is you know how to think. You know how to think through a biblical worldview.
Well, that's radical for education.
Exactly.
I mean, knowing how to think.
Exactly.
You know, the sad thing I find in the secular world, students are taught what to think.
Mm-hmm.
Here, you're taught how to think, and that's a
Right.
big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Big difference. So you were homeschooled before you came here.
Yes, I was.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question, and the answer might be embarrassing for me. Have you ever heard of Ken Ham before you came to Bob Jones University?
I did.
Oh, you did? Oh, there you are. See? I'm glad I asked the question. So, excellent. Well, we have also over here Christian. And Christian, what are you doing?
I am a zoo and wildlife biology major.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir.
I always wanted to do something like that. I sort of had that down as one of my on my list in Australia, but I got a scholarship to be a teacher, so I became a science teacher. So what do you study here? What sort of things?
Well, so far we've had a lot of core classes so far, and then we've delved into some. I had Dr. Boyd's evolution class. I've had some.
You didn't come out believing evolution after that, did you?
No. It actually confirmed some of the things that we thought about creation, which was really interesting because we dealt with some of the stuff that many evolutionists would use as support for their views, and we found out how that would support creation.
Okay, excellent.
And also I've had plant physiology with Dr. Antognani and some ecology classes with Dr. Carmichael, who's not here today.
So zoo and wildlife.
Yes, sir.
So you want to go and work in a zoo?
Not necessarily. That's what everyone assumes when I tell them what my major is.
Oh, the reason I was asking that is because we have a zoo at the Ark, you see.
Oh, okay.
And we have a petting zoo, and we have another petting zoo at the Creation Museum, and we're always looking for creationist people, you know. So anyway, go on. Yes.
I'd love to work for the government in the Fish and Wildlife Service. So
okay.
That's what I'm.
To be a Christian creationist in the Fish and Wildlife Service?
Yes. Actually, this past summer I had an opportunity to intern with the Department of Natural Resources here in South Carolina. And my supervisor, he graduated from Clemson, but he was actually a Christian as well. So that was really encouraging experience for me to see that there are some other Christians in that field.
And so, just like anyone else, you can study these areas and go out and be the best you can be at doing the job. Just because you're a Christian and creationist doesn't mean you can't go and do those jobs.
Yep.
And you get the good training here at Bob Jones University. So, who else haven't we spoken to much here today? I think we've spoken to everybody we have here. Yes, questions.
So, is the subject of science in near-death experiences ever discussed within the classes?
Oh, okay. Maybe we would have to ask the subject of science and near-death experiences ever discussed in any of the classes. No? Yes? People ask some interesting questions on my Facebook.
I know that in bioethics they cover a lot of subjects. I don't cover that, but I think our bioethics course does. Jessica Miner's the
So who teaches the bioethics course?
Jessica Miner. She has a PhD in bioethics.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Have you had any of her classes, Jesse?
Yes, I'm actually currently in her class. We haven't covered that yet, but I mean we've covered a lot of material regarding end of life and things like that. So people in comas, people that are minimally conscious state, or even persistent unconscious type patients, and so we would cover different aspects of that.
Oh, excellent. Okay, Maria?
Do codependent microenvironmenta prove a breeder?
Okay, someone keep talking there for a moment while I have a look at this question and see if I can understand it. Do codependent microenvironmenta prove a creator? I think the question might be, who does environmental science here? Enzo.
I didn't quite understand the
I
question.
think it's talking about in the environment where you have organisms that are all codependent on each other. Does that prove creation?
Well, that definitely proves that the ecosystem, in order to work the way it is, needs a certain level of complexity. There is a certain level of ecological overlap among organisms, but there is also some specificity. So you really need this compound environment. So from that perspective, you see that the ecosystem itself has been engineerized in a specific way. So if you take one of the elements out, the ecosystem can get stuck just because it's missing a key functionality. Unless there is another organism that was latent for the expression of that trait and now is able to compensate. So I would say yes, there is such a complexity, just like the complexity we can observe in the human body, that's reflected also at an ecosystem level.
You know, that's the answer I was going to give, actually. But I think you're a bit more eloquent than I would have been in doing that.
That's just because I'm Italian and you are Australian, right?
There we are. See, these guys are all human. You can have fun here with these guys here at Bob Jones University. Hey, how do you? I'll put you on the spot here.
Okay.
Because since this question came up, but what about in a fallen world? How does that affect all this codependency and the way in which we see the relationships out there? What has that done to it? Do you see the effects of a fallen world? And
you see the effects of a fallen world in two folds. First of all, whatever activity we do as humans, whatever activity it's out there has an impact. And that impact has a cost at an ecological level. That would be one side. The other side is one of the effects of the effects of sin is death. So obviously those cycles are subjected to that factor as well. So there has to be a continuous recycling, and factors such as mutations, factors such as unexpected, from our perspective, changes in the environment can create can break the equilibrium.
Absolutely. So students, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, definitely.
Because I teach a class on parasitology, and one of the big questions that we deal with in that class is where do parasites come from?
Yeah, what they do before the fall.
Yeah. Well, what did they do? And that's one of the things that we try to answer, because really when God made everything good so that everything worked well together, it really was a symbiotic relationship among so many different organisms, really for man's good. All of creation really was designed so that man could come and do what he was created to do, to glorify God. And so everything else was designed for us to be able to do that. So what about parasites today?
Yeah, I want to know the answer.
Well, that is the result of the fall. So you have things like amoebas that live in our guts. The vast majority of the amoebas that live in our guts really are beneficial to us. They help break down things that we can't break down. But then you get some stuff that cause disease. Well, why can they cause disease today? Well, they have certain traits that allow them to do that. But what I find fascinating is you see other organisms that are what we call closely related to them that live harmoniously with us. And almost any example of a disease from a parasite perspective, you can actually find a beneficial organism.
Now,
That's beautiful.
I'm not a scientist, right? But one of the things I read somewhere, if I remember correctly, is that when it comes to, say, bacteria, the majority of them, maybe 90% of them, are not disease causing. It's only a small percentage that really are disease causing, which means they've gotten out of what they were created for.
And one of the benefits of coming to Bob Jones is we have experts in so many different fields. So I'm passing the microphone to
Dr. Gray.
So I'm a microbiologist.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now you can correct anything that he said or I said, or okay.
Well, I would say the percentage that you gave is a vast overestimate of the importance. So really, we actually know about only a tiny fraction of the bacterial, let's say, prokaryotic organisms that are out there, estimated to be somewhere around 10 million, and we know about 12,000 of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and most of them that we know about because of harmonious effects being
not
interrupted.
Things.
Yeah. Most of them actually have strategic roles in ecological cycles. So just like media today, the bad guys get the press. And the good guys who actually keep the civilization.
The bad guys are a small percentage.
Yes, and I would say it's a fraction of 1%.
Oh, really?
Based on what we know already.
See, doesn't that speak to us of a perfect world, but it's marred by sin, and you see the effects of that there?
Yeah, and microbiologists agree across the boards that life would not be possible without microorganisms. So we look at them as something to wash off and avoid, but actually it's speaking to what David was talking about a minute ago. We're talking about broad-scale harmonies of organisms that were orchestrated here for a purpose, and they're not simply filling space up, but they're interacting with each other in very productive ways.
So it's just like politics, as you said. The minority get all the bad
Yeah,
press.
the agitators get the press.
Yeah,
yes.
so you want to advocate for the good guys getting more press
Yeah,
when it comes to bacteria and microorganisms.
absolutely.
in
Still
general.
wash your hands. But
Okay, that sounds good. Maria?
How does evolution explain design in nature?
How does evolution display design in nature? Yeah, because Richard Dawkins talks about evolution designing things. Who wants to have a go at answering that? Come on, you got all these experts here from Bob Jones University. I'm putting them on the spot here in the science faculty.
So I do teach a class on evolution, and really the main idea here is what's your definition of evolution? Because usually when we're looking at things that appear to be designed to fit a particular environment, it's because they've adapted to that environment. But that adaptation is not evolution. It's just taking what's already there, and over time, through generations and generations, certain organisms actually survive better than others. And so now that looks like they fit that perfectly because they adapted to that. So as environments change over time, we actually see changes in organisms that fit that environment.
because of the information already there.
That's right, the information that's already there. It's not that new information has come along. So when evolutionists try to say things like mutation is the thing that led to the adaptation, that's just a major assumption. We don't actually know that that was a mutation. It's already there.
It's already there.
Yeah. As
So
a matter
what
of fact, most mutations destroy information, not create it.
what they call mutation sometimes is already variability within
That's
the
right.
organism.
Yeah.
This is in connection to the concept of losing information, mutation, and pathogenicity. So you may have heard that there are certain strains of the same bacteria which are pathogenic, some other strains which are not.
Right.
For instance, E. coli, and this is proved for some, not for all, but for a good chunk of them, that the ones which are pathogenic because they may have lost a certain trait that the wild type, that the non-pathogenic one used to have. So our body is not able to recognize it anymore. That's how we can be infected.
And yet the secular world and the evolutionists claim that's evidence of evolution because they say there's something new, but it's not new information.
That's right. It's just a different type of expression and a loss of information at the end.
So I have a question for the doctor here. So if students were not evolutionists, I mean, if students were not taught evolution at all, in the sense of, molecules to man, belief, and all the rest of it, if they weren't taught that, how would that affect them as a medical doctor in medical practice?
Not at all. I mean, everyday practice has nothing to do with origins. And so you can be a rigorous scientist or a rigorous doctor irrespective of origins.
But you're disagreeing with Richard Dawkins now, because Richard Dawkins, that famous atheist, says the whole of science is dependent upon evolution.
Yes, but Dawkins also believed that we came from Martians. So
okay. Well, he proposed that idea. There are aliens out there, panspermia. Yes. So, Maria, any other questions there? We got no other questions?
I wanted to add one thing. When we were talking about bioethics a little while ago, one of the beauties of coming to a Christian university where bioethics is taught is that you're going to get bioethics from a biblical worldview.
Right.
Whereas any other secular university is based on situational ethics.
Right.
And that's one of the things I love about teaching at a
because they get it from a Christian worldview. Yeah. And we see the Christian worldview collapsing in this nation, and unfortunately, even in the research we've done, even the millennials, the coming generation, they're in our churches, have a very secular worldview, and so we really need. That's why I encourage people to consider sending their students to places like Bob Jones University, because it's one of those few rare places in the world that will teach your children a biblical worldview. And not just Christianize a secular worldview, but teach a true biblical worldview and give them really good academics. So, Dr. Gray, the accusation is often made, if people come to university like this, they're not going to be able to get jobs out there in the secular world, and they won't succeed out there in the secular world. So that means all the students that have come through here, what are they doing? Sitting at home in their mother's basement or something?
No, they're productive. In fact, they're people who are functioning at a very high level within their professions. And part of that is the Christian worldview and ethic, the work ethic, the ability to persist, the ability to work.
That. If you don't know what work ethic is, we can explain that a little later. Okay.
Yeah, the ability to interact with other people with whom you disagree, but that you can be a contributor, and in many cases in the scientific arena, they really have to earn their stripes, but having been in the position of having to defend their faith, they have kind of risen like cream to the top of their profession.
Well, now, there is persecution in this nation.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no doubt about
absolutely.
it. And there are people, even in universities, who will be fired or put down if they find out they're creationist,
Right.
even if they're the best they can
Yes.
be at their job. So put you on the spot a little bit without giving any names away or names of organizations, because I know that what can happen, because there are even atheists that watch my Facebook Live, for instance, and if they hear a name or whatever, they'll try to go after that person, you know. So, but can you give us an idea of the sorts of positions that graduates here have been able to attain to?
Teaching in medical school, we've got a number of people who teach in medical schools, because as Dr. Cheta said, really, bottom line, in medicine makes no difference. Yeah, teaching in a secular environment in higher education with a creation perspective is much more difficult. So that's where most of the persecution comes from. It would be difficult. I would be transparent about that. It would be difficult to get a job. We've got jobs here. You know, we've got 20. You
can give a plug for that.
Yeah, we've got 20 PhDs here who are here because this is a place where they can express who they are and train the next generation. So we've got a vibrant learning community. I mean, we've got 20 PhDs in the Division of Natural Science, 12 in the biology department. We've got 200 plus biological science majors. So we've got a robust community of people here who are filling roles. Medicine would just be one example, because we've gotten students into 60 different medical schools in the United States. Yeah, our acceptance rate is more than double the national average of acceptance into medical school. Yes.
That can't be right. You're a creationist university. How could that be so?
Yeah, and our MCAT scores, which are kind of the great equalizer of the medical college admission test, are significantly above. We score in the top 15% of the nation. So something's got to be going on here, that they learn how to think critically.
And that's what people need to take note of, because a lot of people out there, even in the church, have been indoctrinated to believe if you go to a Christian university, particularly a creationist one, that you won't get a job, you'll get a lower education. Where in actual fact, what you're saying is the opposite is true.
Yes, it absolutely is. And the students that go to medical school make quite an impression when they go there, because of their ability to operate at such a high level of thoughtfulness and ability to solve problems, which is really where it is. That's why we hire experts, is to solve our problems.
I like that, to make quite an impression. If Richard Dawkins is watching this today, he'd get quite a depression, wouldn't he? He really wouldn't want this happening. Well, it's been great talking to all you here. Let's see, the time is, it's 9:05. You don't even have classes. I've got to speak at 10 o'clock today, actually, here at Bob Jones University. Any other questions, burning questions that people had there? Maria's number of comments and things. So does anyone else want to say anything before we close off today? Or about, tell us about your experience here, personal experience.
Well, personally, I really enjoyed being here. I actually grew up in China, and so not being around a large community of Christians that believe the same way I did, and so coming here, I was able to meet a lot of people. Obviously, I thoroughly enjoy the faculty here. I was able to learn so much from them. They all are very well versed in their field and care about us as students. They want us to be able to grow and learn and succeed and excel out in the outside world, and as a Christian to be able to grow spiritually. And that's amazing to me. And we've been talking about the science department here this entire time, but we have so many various majors all over our campus
Right, this is just
that are
one
the same
department.
thing.
It's just one meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Brittany, where do you come from?
I'm from Orangeburg, South Carolina.
From where?
Orangeburg, South Carolina.
Oh, South Carolina. You're from South Carolina? Okay. So it's spring out there right now.
Right.
It's raining. No, well, the trees are blossoming.
Right.
Blossoming. So what about your personal experience here?
It's pretty much the same as Jesse. The faculty are great. They care about us spiritually and academically. They want to see us succeed outside of school. And the students seem to have a love for learning, and the teachers, I guess, grow from that and try to help us even more. So it's been great coming here.
Oh, great. So Enzo, what's it like coming from Italy to a place like this? Italy is not real Christian, is it?
No. The weather, I mean, I'm from southern Italy, so I like the weather here.
Oh, you like the weather better?
Yes.
Mhm.
It's quite a change, definitely, but
But the Christian climate here is better.
it's
isn't
much
it?
warmer. Well, okay. Yeah, it's freezing cold up there.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's a reality.
And Dr. Brown, you were one too that went to that Biologos conference
Yeah, I
recently,
did.
didn't you? And Biologos is an organization that's trying to infiltrate the church to get them to believe in evolution. And, do you have a word to say about, the problems of Biologos real quickly?
Yeah, I was actually meditating on that today after listening to Brian Voigt's talk yesterday at our seminary conference, and just reflecting on some of the things that I've learned since going to that conference. And one of the verses that came to mind comes from 2 Corinthians, where it talks about you can't mix light and darkness. In other words, being unequally yoked together. And it seems to me that really is what's going on there. They're trying to mix a biblical worldview with an evolutionary worldview, but in essence what they end up doing is taking their evolutionary worldview and causing that to interpret what the Bible says. So it really becomes that unequally yoked.
Right.
And really we're warned about that. That's one of the things that we're trying to do here, is not just caution our students about Biologos per se, but about any type of false doctrine or any type of apostasy that might be out there.
And, it's sad to me that many even so-called Christian colleges are inviting Biologos speakers and so on, which you wouldn't do here. But here you want to teach them a true Christian worldview. And I just see that compromise permeating so many Christian colleges.
Sure.
And in the end, parents spend thousands and thousands of dollars to send their students to these colleges, and many of them, their faith is in shatters by the time they come out. If faith is weakened, many of them are not on fire for the Lord, many walk away from the church. A big difference at a university like this.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and I was going to say, too, that was almost me, because I wasn't a believer when I was a student here at Bob Jones. And the summer before I went to Clemson, the Lord saved me. And that really was what kept me from walking away from the church, is that God reached down and graciously saved me. And I just really thank the Lord for that, because now I can come back here and really encourage my students not just to be scientists, but really, are you truly a believer? How do you know?
Right.
And before you leave here, we're gonna focus on that and make sure that our students really do love the Lord with all their heart.
After what all of you have said today, I mean, I want to be a student again and come here, and because I know I didn't go to a Christian university. I mean, in Australia, I went to a secular university. This is so different, people don't realize how blessed they are in this country to have a place like this. I mean, really, when I grew up in Australia, I just I'd never heard of a Christian university, and and to learn about places like this, people just need to understand how blessed they are. And I always remind people, look, the greatest investment you have is in your children that are going to live for eternity. And where are they going to live for eternity? So Deanna and Christian, we're going to finish off here in a moment, but experience for you two?
This is a very rich learning environment, and I think it's actually directly because of the faculty. They are very well educated, and they could have jobs anywhere else, but they choose to come here and train the students and have an impact on their lives. And that directly affects the student body and how we view each other and how we grow.
So Christian?
Yeah.
They'll have to pay you all to be on the marketing team here. They need to get you on the marketing team.
I think, along with what some of my other peers have said, one of the biggest positives that I see from my educational experience here is the willingness of the faculty to talk with you and explain some material. There's been a couple times where I haven't understood something and I've gone to somebody's office, or I've had a question about something that was taught in the lecture that day, and I've spent 30 or 40 minutes or an hour or more at somebody's office just asking questions. I can remember specifically a question I had about the evolutionist class, and Dr. Boyd took like an hour after class to explain some of the things related to that. So I think that's one of the major benefits of coming to a smaller university, where the faculty members have time to devote individual attention to some of the students.
Almost like being one-on-one.
Yes, sir.
And that's another special aspect of this place as well. Well, we have a number of scientists that work at Answers in Genesis too. Dr. Georgia Purdom has a PhD in molecular genetics, and Dr. David Menton has a PhD from Brown University in biology, and then Dr. Danny Faulkner, who's actually a graduate of Bob Jones University, who's our astronomy, has a PhD in astronomy. We also have Dr. Terry Mortensen, who has a PhD in history of geology from Coventry University in England, and also Master's Theology. We also have Dr. Andrew Snelling, who has a PhD in geology. We have a medical doctor, Dr. Tommy Mitchell, who is an internist. So I probably missed a couple here, and I'll probably get yelled at later for missing someone. But they want to work with people like you too. I'm sure we could work on some interesting research projects together and learn from each other as well. Well, that's great. Great to talk to all you guys here and girls at Answers at the Bob Jones University. If they go to the top comment again, we pinned the link to bju.edu. Check out Bob Jones University. This is a really special place. It's been great to talk to you and get to know just a few of the faculty here and some of the students. And as I said, it excites me to want to be a student again and come here and do some of these courses. So that'd be great. And then to sit in Enzo's class and learn Italian, Italian accent or something.
Espresso too.
He says, "Oh, you're a coffee man? Yeah, but
I am the one.
yeah, but you drink black coffee, don't you? Black coffee? Yeah. So if I go to Starbucks to get coffee and they say, "What flavor do you want?" I say, "Flavor." I know it's like the Denny's of the restaurant world. I understand that, but I put. They ask me what flavor I want in my coffee, and I say, "Flavor? I want coffee."
I agree with you.
But you're a real purist.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, pure. Yeah, I understand that. Right. Okay, so we're going to end off here from Bob Jones University. Hey, live stream this morning at 10 o'clock. I'll be talking on why we're building why we have built an evangelistic ark. And then this evening at 7 o'clock, One Blood, One Race.